Zach, thank you so much for coming along to this small interview series on LinkedIn called "Let Me Pick Your Brain." I have so much been looking forward to talk to you again. We first met, I think, in person. That was when we couldn't meet in person in 2019 to a video workshop that you conducted here in Oslo. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. It's been a long time. It was great. That was a great experience, though, in Norway. Great group of people who are doing a lot of great things with video now. And all it took was a couple of days, spending some time together and learning the right things. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had a great time together with you, Zach, and we so much appreciate the time you spent here and what you learned us. So, but of course, then this interview will all be about video, video, and video. So,
all right.
I hope that's okay for you.
Yeah, it's a good thing we're doing it on video.
Yeah, that's a good point. And when it comes to LinkedIn, you and we have 52 mutual connections right now. So it means that we are working within the same industry in some way, even though that you are on the other side of the ocean.
Yeah, a lot of that's a cool thing about LinkedIn too, is like it really, you have overlapping social and professional circles. And without the technology, you wouldn't know that. So that's one of the craziest things about LinkedIn too. Wow, 52 connections. That's really cool.
That's cool. So I got to know you.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So Zach, tell us a little bit more about you. Your full name is Zachary Basner. And who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm a digital sales and marketing coach for a training and consulting company called Impact. My job is essentially to help organizations master their digital sales and marketing. In other words, they're not dependent on an agency that they outsource their sales and marketing activities to. Instead, they bring all that stuff in-house. And my job specifically in that is to work with leadership and sales teams to essentially get the most out of their marketing team. But how do we collaborate together? How do we do this well? How do we do it at a world-class level? That's my job. That's what I do every day.
So how important is it when you do this kind of coaching to interact with the leadership in these organizations?
It's incredible the difference that this makes. After working with dozens and dozens of companies over the past, 5 or 6 years working with them on this strategy specifically, there's a very clear correlation between when a CEO and leadership is involved in the initiative and when they're not. What's interesting is, leadership, we already know they have the capability of moving hurdles. They have the capability of putting people in the right seats and making the resources and things like that. That stuff is so important, but that doesn't mean they do those things, they go away. A leader really is responsible for casting the vision to the whole organization. And that's one of what I would say is probably the most important traits of a great CEO, a great leader, is that they do cast that vision and they live in accordance with the values of that vision. So the larger the organization, the more folks in different departments are going to have their own personal priorities. Those things pull against the tide of making progress with specifically the things that we work on together, right? It's not their fault. It's just what happens. But when you have a CEO and you have a leader and you have somebody who's really there casting the vision and keeping everybody focused on what's important, the big picture, it makes a major difference. And it's very clear, if you ever look at any of the case studies that we've got, it's very, very clear that that is one of the major things that makes a company successful with this.
Interesting. And I guess this shift within the whole organization doesn't just happen with one workshop with you, right?
No, I wish it was that simple. What that can do, so what it does do is it at least gets everybody familiar with the principles, the concepts, explains the what, the why, and the how, so that everybody, nobody is, wondering what it would look like. They have a good idea of what it would look like. It doesn't mean it solves all the cultural problems, doesn't mean it gives you the full strategy, doesn't mean it gives you everything that you need. But especially when it comes to buy-in, should we do this thing? Is this thing important to us? It's important to have somebody from the outside come and do that, because as the saying goes, you could be a prophet to the world, but in your hometown, you're not the prophet. So having somebody come in, clear some of those hurdles, explain the concept well, to a team is really, really important. That's why we've always done the workshops. We really believe in those. We do a lot of them. And that's generally the best way to start. If you're doing something radical and new, it's the best way to start. Get everybody in the room. Let's talk about this thing. Let's hammer it out.
So tell me, Zach, when you're working with a company, an organization for a longer period of time like this, what will you say is the benefits, or maybe also some of the hurdles that you stumble into, or when it comes to that, working with them?
When the challenge for me as a coach, and as a coach, I'm not necessarily a consultant. A consultant is somebody you hire to come in and solve a problem. Coach is somebody that you hire when you want to get better, personally, professionally. You need some guidance. You need somebody to check, see what's going on. But, with being a coach, one of the hardest parts is that you never want that person to be completely dependent on you for everything. That really only hurts their own growth. And especially with what we do, I mean, we're teaching companies, we're teaching individuals how to be self-reliant, how to be not dependent on an agency. So if we just came in and said, don't be dependent on them, be dependent on us instead, then we're not actually solving the problem. So that's what I notice, is that when you're working with somebody for a longer period of time, the work gets difficult at times. They just want you to tell them the answer. At times it's like, well, things are going great. So what, do we still need to keep our foot on the gas? Yes, we do need to keep our foot on the gas, and you need to be the one that's saying that, not me. So I think that's one of the most interesting things about working with folks for a long time is it's difficult to maintain momentum, which necessitates needing a coach, but it's also a challenge because you don't want to become reliant on your coach to drive everything. That's probably, I guess, one of the most interesting things that I've discovered thus far.
And that's a fine balance, Zach, and I know for sure that you balance that very well. But you have to tell me, you told me earlier that as a young man, you were very interested in, you're still a young man, but you're a younger man. You were interested in photography and video. So how did you end up being a coach at Impact?
Didn't plan that, to be honest with you. It happened, divine intervention, the Lord's plan. Years ago, I had my own inbound marketing agency, and I ran that for about 3 years. And I was much younger then and didn't know what the heck I was doing. I knew I was really interested in digital marketing. I didn't know enough. I was too young, didn't have enough experience. I never went to school for that. Very small startups, not much to rant and rave about. One of them's not even around anymore. And at some point I decided, maybe I should become a firefighter. So I went and did that for a while. And it turns out that wasn't for me either. So I was just like stumbling around, just bumping into stuff. I had no idea what I was doing. And finally I ended up on the radar of Marcus Sheridan, who's now a longtime friend, mentor. He's been my boss now for many years. And I knew I wanted to work for him. I knew it was a great opportunity, and I had heard him years before speak at a conference that I was at, and was like, this guy's got something here. I would love to be a part of that. And he said, in my first conversation I ever had with him, he said, Zach, I don't think you got what it takes to work here. And I said, well, I think you should give me a chance. And he said, he wasn't convinced. So, I had to convince him. So I went out and at the time, HubSpot Academy, it's like a big, marketing online courses and things like that. I went and got all the certifications that they had. They had 13 at the time. I got all 13 certifications, came back and said, Marcus, this is what I've done. You still think I don't have what it takes? And at that point he saw something in me, that was worth giving a shot. And so I started working for him, became our video trainer. It was my job to work with clients, train their videographers, train their staff to be good on camera. And I loved that. I mean, it was just, I really found that passion for instruction and coaching, and it was just a really fun time. Just so happens that around that time, video was just becoming so popular, and there was a lot to be learned there, and not a lot of people knew what to do. So really really just great launch pad for me. Being able to work alongside Marcus and help so many companies with this for the first time. You know, I would argue that out of most marketing agencies or most people in the marketing space, I've probably worked with and trained more videographers than anybody at this point, just because of the timing of it. And so I got to learn firsthand what works and what doesn't. That was such an honor for me. It's like I get to see what happens when you do some of these things. And so it's been a fun ride. Now I've went from training the videographer, you know, then training the marketing manager. Now I'm essentially coaching the CEO and the sales manager, which has been a cool transition up the food chain there.
So you can say in some way that you maybe were lucky when videos suddenly, you know, arise on the horizon within digital sales and marketing, but you really did break new grounds, Zach, when it comes to this book. They Ask You Answer. And I know that you worked together with Marcus Sheridan in the last version of this book, They Ask You Answer. You were helping him with the chapter about video. That's the updated one. Mm-hmm. So how is that book controlling your business day, or maybe also the strategy for impact and the way you work today?
Yeah, well, by the way, when I was with Marcus when the first edition of the book was published back in 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. I was with them right there when we published it. And, you know, nobody knew what was going to happen with it. You know, hey, this thing could be a New York Times bestseller. This thing could be a dud. Who knows? You know, it's like we didn't know. And what's happened over the past few years has been really incredible, right? And the transformation that it's caused in impact is the same transformation that happens for most companies, is that it gives you a way of thinking. It's a business philosophy, right? It's a good way to say it. It's a business philosophy. It's not just a sales and marketing thing. It is a business philosophy that is essentially, if you want to be the most trusted voice in a space, or be the most trusted voice for your customers, then you have to really obsess over the way that they think, the way that they shop, the way that they buy. It's an obsession with the customer, not with their own interests. And that did start off as a content marketing strategy. You know, if you're going to write content, who should it be? It should be for your customers. And what would you write about? And these are the things that you'd write about. But it permeates other areas of the business as well. I mean, you can apply this to anything. If customers in the room right now, how would they feel about this, right? Like, what are they going to feel when we make this change? And that's, you know, we have to live that at Impact because we teach it, but we have to live it because it's crucial for our growth. If we're only interested in ourselves, or if we're just looking around at what the competition is doing and follow their lead, then we'd be lagging behind. I think what we've done is we've carved out a nice, a part of this marketplace and created a really great audience of folks because we have stayed true to the values of, like, this is, you know, our community is really your community. And we're a part of it, and we want to be, you know, we want to be as valuable as possible. But everything that we've done over these past few years has been, how do we help more people? Our mantra is to create heroes, to grow businesses and change lives, right? That's what we do every day. It's like, how do we create more heroes? How do we grow more businesses? How do we change more lives? And that's an obsession with our customer, not with us.
And very early in the 2013 or 14, when you were working on the book, you also at that time identified video as maybe one of the most powerful tools to create trust in the relation between us and the customers. And now we are writing 2021. What about video, Zach?
Video is still just as important as it was, if not more important. You know, and I love talking about this because it's been my specialty for many years. Even back then, it was clearly affecting the way that people made buying decisions. We could see that then. The problem at that point, and even still to this day, is that despite that, we watch videos before we buy things, right? And this is not exclusive to, you know, a B2C product marketplace. This is B2B, B2C, product, service, all businesses. The thing about this is video has historically been kind of a thing where you hire a production company, you give them a few $1,000s, they come in once a year, they make you a few videos, and it's like, that's our video strategy. But we saw companies do this, and they're still frustrated at the end of the year because they're like, was there any meaningful difference in us doing this? Sorry, my clock is going right now.
That's fine. I'm glad you have a clock too, because I have one too, so that makes us more synchronized.
Okay. The clock's going, dog's going. Yeah. So, the problem at that time is that you essentially you'd farm out these videos to a production company, and then you have nothing to show at the end of the year after they've done these videos, and that's frustrating. And by the way, I'd been in that position before as a business owner where I felt that same way. It's like, it's not the way. And so we said to ourselves, is it possible we could teach companies how to do this? Could we teach them, could we help them hire a videographer in-house, train that videographer to make really great sales video content, and therefore create this culture of video within an organization? It's possible we could do that. A lot of, I would say, our peers in the industry said no, that can't be done. We said, we don't think so. We think it can. So that's what we did. And that's been an amazing journey of, like I said earlier, being able to see what works and what doesn't. We figured out a few major things that everybody would want to know in business. How should I structure a video so that it actually makes a difference? We discovered, what are the types of videos that I should make in order to make the biggest difference in sales? And spoiler alert, it's not an About Us video. We discovered as far as performance goes, what are things that would draw the audience in so that they would trust you, so that they would know you. Our mantra is see us, hear us, know us before we see, hear, and know them. And there's such powerful things that you can do with video you can't do with other types of media. So we discovered all of these things. It's like, wow, video A is here to stay, and in many cases, it's more effective than just the written word, than just words on a page.
Yeah, it's really
that's been great.
Yeah, it's strong and powerful, Zach. It really is. But let's now just try to bring video into the network that we're talking about, LinkedIn. And we have hundreds of millions of users of LinkedIn, but only a percentage, like 3 to 5%, depending on the industry, is publishing something, and even fewer is publishing a video. So the thing is that, Zach, I'm not publishing any videos because it's not perfect. What do you think?
Yeah, that's public enemy number one, is perfection. Yeah. Hey, I struggle with it too. So I understand it. Look, here's the real deal here. If we're trying to be perfect, it's actually costing us money. And here's why it's costing us money versus making us money. You see all these LinkedIn video kind of gurus out there that they charge a lot of money. That they could help you, Oscar. They could help you. You could grow your following, no doubt. You grow the following, you'd be publishing a lot. And one of the major things that they're doing for you, Oscar, is just saying, okay, Oscar, here's what you're going to do. You're going to publish a video every day this week. And because they're there as an accountability coach, and they're a sounding board, and they're pushing you, and they're making sure you're driving forward. Because you're doing that, okay, you do grow your following. You are on more people's radar. You do increase your revenue. But it cost you money to bring that person in. And the major thing that they did for you was just kind of motivate you. So is it possible that you could do that on your own? Yes, any of us could do that on our own. I'd say the other way that this is costing us money is, if you look at a lot of user-generated content, it's very quick, snappy, not a lot of editing is going on. Look, when I sit down to edit a video, it takes me a while. Because I'm like, this thing's going to be a cinematic masterpiece. If this doesn't look like Michael Bay edited this, then it's not good enough for me. And so now look at all this time I'm putting into this. Now I upload that video. And because it took me so long, it's the only one I was able to make this week, or at worst this month. So now I've just sunk in 5 hours of my time for one video. And because I only did one video, not a lot of people saw it, because you can get a lot more views the more stuff that you publish, but because it's only one video, not a lot of people saw it. So now I have sunk cost and a diminishing return. So like, if you stare down the barrel of these things, hey, it's going to cost me money, it's going to cost me time. Perhaps perfection isn't the goal. Consistency should be the goal. Look, no matter how perfect it is, if people don't see it, it doesn't matter. So I would be way more obsessed with how many people are going to see this. And if it's not perfect, don't sweat it. A lot of these folks that you see and you might admire on LinkedIn, by the way, all these people that you might admire and go, man, I wish I could do that. They're not necessarily doing anything big and spectacular and special. A lot of them are editing these videos on their phone. Probably takes them 5 to 10 minutes to record and shoot and publish a video. You could do that too. You just have to get into the habits. So I guess that's the main takeaway there, is like, don't set out to be a big LinkedIn video creator. Just start forming some of the habits. What does a LinkedIn video creator do? You know, one thing they do is they don't worry about perfection every time they publish something. That's one thing, right? That's one habit we can develop.
Okay, so Zach, in short, LinkedIn, quantity or quality?
Okay, so not a simple answer, but I'll say quantity is probably the goal. Quality is a important part of it. The great thing about quality is that there are certain things that you can do that you don't have to do now every time. For instance, you know, if you're using a square video format, we've all seen these before, where it's got, you know, the title of the video and it's got the captions and things like this. Once you design that and get it into your video editing program, whatever you're doing, hey, that's done. So now you've made an investment in the quality that you don't have to do every single time. So like, do those things, right? Make those, what are the things I can do once? It improves the quality of the video. Don't have to do it every time. Hey, you know what? Lighting's not great when I do this. So I'm going to invest in a light. Once again, just turn the light on every time I want to make a video. So like, find those things. Find the things that aren't going to create more time, that would improve your quality, so that you can do more quantity. That's my thing. We're so much more tolerant now than we even just were 2 years ago, maybe 1 year ago, as far as video quality. If the audio doesn't sound good, that's not good. If video doesn't look good, sometimes it's fine. Sometimes it's totally okay. And in some cases, it's better, which is mind-boggling to me. In some cases, if you compare two videos, the one that's nice and polished and the one that's like the guy walking down the street, you know, just holding his phone out in front of him. If you compare the two, the one that was the more amateur, didn't have all the fancy bells and whistles, that one performed better for some reason. So why is that? So, you know, I would say quantity over quality.
So yeah, we see this over and over again on LinkedIn, and in my network too, or our network too. We see it several times a week or a day, actually. So since I have you here now as my personal coach, and I don't know, should I really start publishing kind of, you know, obvious amateur videos on LinkedIn? So how could you push me to press the publish button on LinkedIn for my first video, Zach? How can you help me? Yeah,
well, so for anybody who's in your position, officer, I mean, first of all, you need to figure out what you want to accomplish, right? If it's thought leadership, if it's LinkedIn, trying to build my following, trying to get more views on my stuff, that's one thing. If it's like, we're just trying to drive leads and revenue, then that would probably be a different story. Let's say you're out there and you're trying to build your following through thought leadership. Hey, don't overthink it. Start with what you know. What are things that you can talk about, that you can teach, that you can make videos about, it'd be easy for you to do. In fact, in your mind, it's probably the most simple thing in the world. Is it a story that you've had in your life? Is it a principle that you learned? Is it a question that would make your audience think really hard? Like, what are the things that for you that just come kind of natural? It'd be easy for you to create content about, and just start there. Don't think about the next 20 videos you need to make. Think about the next couple, And just always be thinking about that. What are the next couple? What are the next couple? What are the next couple? And I promise you'll never run out of ideas. It's amazing. But for some reason, when you sit down and come up with 20 ideas, it's like, I don't have anything. So just don't do that, right? So just start with what you know. Similarly, if you're a business, you're an entrepreneur or whatever, and it's like, I need leads. That's what I need, is I need leads. Then start with, a couple of the most common questions that you hear. Like, what are the things really that your buyer wants to know that for the most part, the marketplace just hasn't answered for them? Your competitors haven't answered it. You haven't answered it. Their friends haven't answered it for them. What are the questions that when they see this, they're going to go, wow, I never thought of it like that. Do those, attach a lead magnet to them, some sort of downloadable thing, and, a landing page, and boom, you'll just see things start popping off. And it's the most simple thing in the world. You didn't even have to pitch anything. You didn't have to pitch a single thing. All you did was teach them something that they wanted to know, and you got their information. What a beautiful thing. So that's how I would advise getting started.
Okay, great. And I like something they said about, being a thought leader. I get a little bit stressed by that, but teacher like better. So why is it so important to think like a teacher?
Well, so for anybody who's watching this, I want you to think in your mind of a great teacher or mentor that you've had in your past. It seems to me that everybody has at least one of these. Somebody who really had a profound impact on them. So if you think about this person, picture them in your mind. What was it about them that made them such a great teacher, great mentor? Why were your feelings towards them stronger than other folks that have been in your life that also provided value, perhaps? But what was different about them? What did they do? How did they act? What were some of the things that made them great and memorable to you? I've noticed in talking with a lot of people about this, the things that we tend to really value in a great teacher or mentor is they'll be real with us. They'll tell us what we need to know despite how it might make us feel. They believe in us, even when we don't necessarily believe in ourselves. They see something in us, and they seem to be drawn to, how can I enrich this person? And even for me, like one person, in fact, my great teacher that I'm thinking of right now, has become like the voice in the back of my head in certain times of my life, in weird times of my life too, in times that you would not think this teacher would have any bearing on what I'm going through, but it did. Is that becomes that voice in the back of my head. That's what I think makes a great teacher. And that person is valuable to you and has a relationship, right? The cool thing is that person, you don't even really have to know them personally. Over the years, have had many great mentors that had long passed before I even read their book or listened to their stuff. But they were a mentor to me, and they're an important person to me because they taught in such a way that empowered me to do what I needed to do. And I have that relationship. So that's what I think is possible if we look at ourselves as a teacher versus, I like the way you called it out too, a thought leader tends to be, hey, I'm the expert here. I'm the person who's got all the answers. Look at me. Look how smart I am. A great teacher doesn't really look at it like that. A great teacher is willing to bring something without expecting anything in return. That's what we have to be. It's very clear too, by the way. If you're scrolling through LinkedIn, you're scrolling through anything, it's very clear who the subject matter expert. Look at me, how smart I am, versus I'm just trying to help. It's clear who it is. So there's something there for us that we need to uncover. But
this reminds me of something you taught me in 2019, talking about identifying a mentor, identifying a person. And you said to me, Oscar, when you are looking into the lens, try to identify a person, talk to a person that would be nodding, smiling, and really being impressed on about what you're saying. So why is this important, Zach? Identifying the person, the audience.
Yeah. So whenever you're on camera, generally speaking, we don't really picture the customer. It's almost like we try to get outside of ourselves and are like looking back at ourselves, and like judging us. Like we're a tough critic on ourselves, real judgmental on ourselves. So, one way to get around that and to cope with that or deal with that is don't talk to yourself. Imagine you're having a conversation with, it's like that camera is your friend. That's like an old saying too, like this camera is your friend. Well, don't actually, the camera doesn't have emotions, so they're going to be a terrible friend. But picture somebody who is a friend as if you were talking to them. It's such a neat psychological trick for yourself, because anybody I work with can always think of the person. You can even just say, think of a customer you worked with recently, or a customer you've worked with for a long time you really like. Boom, they got them right in the back of their head. Okay, so I want you to talk as if you're talking to them. Now it's not necessarily a magic trick. It's not like all of a sudden all the anxiety goes away. But what it does is it changes the way that we speak. Okay, so we're less formal now, because we know when we're talking to, Sally, she's a very conversational person herself. And so I can just kind of talk like I normally do. So okay, now we've gotten the formality out of the language. We're thinking more of about how am I explaining this versus just, I wonder how I sound right now. You're thinking more of, okay, did I finish that thought that I just had? And am I explaining this well? It's like you're introducing the social dynamics of a conversation into the video, which is the best thing that you can do. It's such a simple thing. That's funny that's one of the things that you walked away with, Oscar, is imagine there's a person there. I do it every time. Every time I shoot a video, that's how I'm doing it.
Yeah, the thing is that I taught others the same trick. And what is happening, of course, the way we talk, the way everything is, getting more normal, conversational, normal. But also there's something happening within their eyes. It's like, the tension, the stress goes away. It's like, I know you. We spoke before. So it's really helping. So I'm so glad that you taught me that.
Yeah, it's another one of those body language signals that endears the audience to us. So one is how we use our hands, right? So our body language in terms of how we're explaining something. If we're, if I stood here and talked to you with my arms crossed, what would that tell you about how I feel about talking to you today, Oscar? It's like, if I have my hands behind my, there's like these different things, which by the way, I do those things sometimes. I just don't do them, I'm not standing there doing it, but a universal sign of trust, open palms, right? Or using the hands showing, hey, I don't have any weapons, which fortunately in a virtual environment, even if I did, Oscar, you're probably fine. But, this comes from just basic programming that we've got up in our brains. When you can see open palms, it's like this person's not a threat. They don't have any weapons. When a person is more leaning in the video, okay, this person wants, it's like we mirror that. We've got the mirror neurons in our brains. So as a viewer, it's like we're leaning in now towards them. What's happening with our eyes? Are we smiling with the eyes? Are our eyes saying that we're unhappy? It's like all of these things are body language signals that are important, whether you've been working with that person for a long time or you're just meeting them for the first time. It takes on average 7 seconds for us to form our first impression on somebody. That's 7 very valuable seconds. So what are you going to do with it? Body language is a big part of that.
Good point. Good point, Zach.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try it now to be, prophets, talking about the future. 2021, 22, 23, video, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So tell me, Zach, what is going to happen?
Yeah, well, I wish I had a crystal ball that I could tell you. Any predictions that anybody might make has to be based on what, at least in my opinion, has to be based on how the users are using the platform. You see this natural progression in different spaces. So like even with YouTube had its own kind of evolution with video. Facebook had its own evolution with video. Oculus and virtual reality has been its own, like everything seems to kind of have its own little life cycle. It's not like it's just all happening at once for everybody. And LinkedIn was like the last of the game. I mean, I remember saying, and this is going to sound crazy to everybody because I'm the video guy, but I remember saying, I don't think video would work on LinkedIn. And now it's like, that's the thing. So that's one thing. Everyone needs to be conscious of the fact that there's a life cycle with the technology. for all we know, LinkedIn would be gone in 3 years. Right? Any of these, the technology is not the important part. It's more of the principles that I would focus on. If it were me, and I'm making predictions. So the principles is the content that we're making, is it meant to make us look good, or is it meant to help people? If you're always obsessed with helping people, like you said, Oscar, being a great teacher, whether you're a speaker, an entrepreneur, a CEO, a salesperson, whatever, are you a teacher? How are you teaching the world? How are you teaching your marketplace? That's the first thing. Keep doing that. That's not going anywhere. I'd say the second thing is, as far as having a presence on LinkedIn, up until this point, it's almost like it's been reserved for the pioneers, for the trailblazers, people who really want to be passionate about building their brand. I think most all people who work in sales are going to have a personal brand, and LinkedIn is a big part of that. So, you're going to have to be producing some content. And it might feel weird because it's like, my job is to sell. Well, that is true, but your job also is to create relationships. And this is one of the ways that you do it. It's one of the ways that we've done it forever. So that's what I'd say there. You're going to have a lot more people up on the scene who aren't TED speakers. You're going to have more diversity of teaching and personal brands. And let's see, I got to make it an odd number of 3. Everything great comes in 3s, Oscar. So let me see what the third thing that I would say. I'd say this is just overarching for video. We didn't get to talk about it much today. It's something I'm very obsessed with, and something we should all be obsessed with at this point, which is how to sell virtually. Got to get good at that. And no matter what you're doing, if you work in sales, you need to be able to do it well virtually. Over Zoom, over Microsoft Teams, whatever, technology does not matter. But this has been one of my obsessions over the past probably 6 to 8 months. I've worked with a lot of teams at this point. Many of us at Impact have worked with many teams. Just because you sell well doesn't mean you do it well over virtual. And we've learned that lesson. There's a lot of things that teams need to get better at. So I'd say over the next few years, that should be a focus for all of us. Are we investing in the sales team? Are we getting them the training that they need? Are we role-playing scenarios? Are we watching recorded sales calls? Oh my gosh, we didn't talk about that today, Oscar. It's like now we can review sales calls on video. It's incredible. So that would be the third thing I would say is virtual sales calls.
Okay, so when you're talking about virtual sales, I guess you have to name drop another book then.
Yeah, the visual sale. Another great book by Marcus, featuring some work of myself as well, a lot of video culture, things like that. And then Tyler Lessard, who's the marketing head honcho over at Vidyard, which is a big video host in our space. That really covers on what's changing today. And it's going to help anybody understand the why behind virtual and video. And like I said earlier, the kind of the what, the why, and the how is what folks need. They don't need the little hacks and tips and tricks. It's just like what works, what doesn't, how do I do it?
So maybe I have one prediction, Zach. I would like to just test it on you.
Yeah.
I've had like several YouTube exams and diplomas. Okay. A lot of things I know I learned from YouTube, many others. But do you think that we, in some way, sometime in the future, will see something like LinkedTube?
Interesting, like a search engine on LinkedIn? Or you mean just a platform that's all user-generated content and it's all learning based?
Yeah, it's all learning, it's all teaching.
I certainly wouldn't rule it out. It depends on the technology if they're able to create an algorithm that actually serves up stuff that's good. It's like, look at YouTube, how many hours of content are uploaded every minute? It's like 400 hours a minute or something like that. You and I are never going to see 99.9999% of that content. And it's probably a good thing because it's probably not worth our time. So if they can figure out how to do that, and because user generated stuff, there's no quality control. It's just like everybody can just toss stuff up there. So if they can figure out how to create an algorithm where it suggests things that are relevant, I think they've got something there.
Yeah, so LinkedIn
It's
Learning is kind of, you know, starting to do this and to collect informational videos and training and also certificates that you can make just by looking into video series.
interesting. Yeah, I used LinkedIn. So when LinkedIn Learning was lynda.com, I learned so many, like that's how I learned how to edit videos. I never went to any, like I did a little bit of college when I became an EMT like years ago. I did a little bit of college there, but I never went to college for marketing. A lot of things that I learned, you know, I just learned online using stuff like Lynda to learn Premiere Pro and the softwares and stuff like that. And any of that stuff, by the way, any of that stuff could have been videos that were on YouTube. There wasn't some incredible production value that made it more worth it. It's not like masterclass level production. It's stuff that you probably find stuff on YouTube now, but back then you couldn't. So yeah, I think if that happens though, Oscar, it's what we need to be cognizant of as creators or as folks who are taking advantage of the learning. Especially as creators, look, if there's more competition of teachers, if we have a competition of voice, then the voice that is going to be the ruler of the roost is the one that simplifies things the best and makes it the easiest to understand. That is not the case for many of us when we start creating stuff. We really have to understand how to explain things well, communication that's going to move people to action. You know, if somebody walked away from that 10-minute video you just made, what would be their one thing in their mind that they remembered and that they would do? And, you know, even as people who are learning as well, we need to just watch out for these things. You know, it's like, am I getting the best instruction right now? Or am I just getting an easy, you know, it's just easy to access this stuff? You'd rather invest your time in something that's going to help you clarify and, you know what to do next. So I think it's going to be interesting. All this stuff is going to become more competitive. More and more people are going to do it. And I think that means we just need to be focused on great communication. It's never going to go away. We're always going to need to be great communicators. So if you focused on that, you'd be great.
Okay, Zach, time flies very quickly when I speak to you. And so I was, you know, at the end here now going to ask you, what's your words of wisdom? But I think you actually, the last thing that you said was really good. So, but of course, do you have any other words of wisdom for us or for me?
No, I think that was a good note to end on. That's the principle behind all of this stuff, right? The content marketing will change in the future. We don't know what else is going to come out. Video is kind of the thing now that we can see and experience stuff. Maybe it's going to be virtual reality. Maybe that'll be something that for a business they can really take advantage of and it's more accessible. It could be something that we're not even thinking of. But so you know, putting all your chips on one type of content or one type of whatever, I don't think is smart. Like latch onto the principles that are always going to be around. There's not going to be a time in which people who are spending money are going to be just doing it haphazardly. They want to know, they want to learn, they want to be taught. They'll spend the time to do it if you do it right. And so let's all become great teachers. You know, let's obsess over our pupils and the way that they do things and how they prefer to do things. And let's be a great guide to them. They're the hero of the story. We're the guide. We're the teacher. If we do that well, we'll be able to adapt to any technology or content. And
honestly, Zach, you are a great teacher. So thank you so much for joining in this mini series on my LinkedIn profile. Let me pick your brain. I'm so grateful and thank you so much. I so much appreciate what you're doing for the industry when it comes to teaching video and also for me and us personally. So thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you, Oscar. It's a lot of fun.